The team will be up in a minute, okay? Shiloh, the team will be up in a minute.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello.
Hi there.
1 second. Camera. All right. Perfect. Hello, everybody. Welcome in. Oh, my camera's kind of. There we go. It's kind of hot. Welcome in. Welcome in. Tap the screen. Share the live. Welcome in. We are with Shiloh
Yes, ma'am. Shiloh.
Salazar tonight. Yes. Okay. Great. Thank you. We're gonna. Did you share it with your followers?
I don't know how to do that actually. This is my first live, so y'all gonna have
Okay.
to bear with me just a little bit.
No, you're fine. So there's a arrow at the bottom. So if you just click that, and then you'll see a list of people that you follow, and then you can just tap them,
Gotcha.
and then hit share separately.
All right. Awesome possums.
And then it should share out with people you follow so they can come in and hear your plan as you run. Hello, everybody. Welcome in. I know I'm so quiet. Tap the screen, share the live. Send your daily heart means if you haven't already. Let's try to get it going so we can get some people in here so we can hear Shiloh's plan for her district in Texas. This should be very interesting. I'm not from Texas, but we do have a lot of people that's in the group and that comes in that is from Texas. I'm not sure if they're in your district, but they definitely are from Texas. So
Hey, not being in my district's okay because I'm running to make sure that everyone has a voice, whether you're in my district or not.
yes, great. All right. Let's see. We're getting some more people in here. She is running in District 72, which has 10 counties. She is running against, let's see, there is an incumbent already in there, Drew Darby.
Darby, yes, ma'am.
Darby.
He has been in He's been in office for 20 years. I was in 5th grade when he took office.
Wow, wow. We'll talk about that because there are a lot
Oh
of people
yeah.
that are in office that have been there for a long, long time.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I want to welcome everybody in to our Vote Counts OVC live town hall tonight. I am your moderator, Blessings. We are here tonight with Shiloh Salazar. She's running for Texas House District 72. And tonight we will talk about her background, her vision for her district, and of course, taking your questions live. First, I want to just start off by telling you who we are, who is Our Vote Counts. Our Vote Counts is a nonpartisan coalition of citizens from diverse states and backgrounds united by a shared commitment to empowering voters and promoting candidates who stand for integrity, inclusion, and accountability in the upcoming elections. Formed by a coalition of educators, veterans, small business owners, students, and community activists, Our Vote Counts represents the strength of unity across geography, race, and ideology. While our stories are different, our mission is the same: to ensure that every voice is heard and every vote truly counts. Through voter education, candidate outreach, and community engagement, we support leaders who are ready to serve the people, not special interests. By working across state lines and elevating local and national issues, we aim to increase voter turnout, inform public dialogue, and build momentum for lasting change. Our Vote Counts is more than a name, it's a promise, a movement, and a rallying cry for democracy. Together, we are shaping the future, one informed vote at a time. So again, I want to welcome everybody in. So, Shiloh Salazar, let's just start off by just telling us who you are and why you are running for House in Texas.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. First off, I'm just a mom. I know that that's an insult for a lot of moms. You're like, whoa, you're more than just a mom. But honestly, I'm a stay-at-home mom. I have 2 kiddos, 8 and 3. Both have special needs. One's autistic and one has a lot of ADHD like myself. So I'm having to raise myself, which is real fun. I am a business owner. I own a small party rental business where we do like Nerf gun things and bumper cars and those kinds of things. Just trying to bring a fun party to a lot of families because we do live in a Title I town, meaning that over 60% of our population here in Howard County lives below the poverty line of Texas. And the poverty line in Texas is $36,000 a year. So when you have over 70% of our population living below that, it's really hard to have fun parties. So we do stuff like that. It's not a big business, it's not a get rich quick business, but it is something to kind of help the people. I was a former teacher. I taught uncertified teacher. I was a long-term substitute, but I stayed at the junior chemistry level at the high school. I was there for almost 2 years teaching there, but I was in the public education field for almost 6 years. After I got pregnant with my first kiddo, childcare just wasn't there, which Texas is ranked 50th in childcare access, which is absolutely insane. But when you talk about a teacher shortage, that's kind of one of those things that is real life because I've lived that myself. And, here we are in a Title I school where a school takes most of our funding from the federal government because we don't have enough of a tax base here to kind of keep our school at that per pupil level. And, we pay our teachers. Actually, my district is known to be the lowest paying district for teachers. And so when you're already making not enough and there's no childcare around here, it's kind of hard to balance that. I want to work, or do I stay home because I don't make enough to go? So I stayed home with my kiddo. And as I stayed home with my kiddo, I realized that I've always been publicly informed. I was a former speech and debate kid. And so I decided to go work at the polls, and I was a poll watcher, and then I became a poll worker and then an election judge for 5 cycles. Got to know how everyone's vote really does matter, which is great that y'all reached out to have me here because I feel like we are connected in this way of I spent the last, 10 years just trying to educate people on what a county commissioner is and what they do, what your county judge does, so that when they had these elections, people could go to the polls just informed of what they're actually voting on. I don't care who you vote for, I don't care who's on the ballot, but what are you actually voting for and what they do? So I spent 5 years doing that. And then I was just a advocate here, locally. We were fighting the abortion bans here. I don't know if you know, but in Texas, we have a group called Texas Right to Life, and they are going town to town and now county to county, passing abortion bans in
Well,
each
say
town and county.
you want to say AB because TikTok doesn't like certain words, so you
Gotcha,
use
gotcha.
just AB.
Yes,
Okay, go
ma'am.
ahead.
Okay. So they're passing those in town to town and county to county. So I've been helping try to combat that just for women's health care because women's health care is underrated here. We are in a maternity desert here. So in our 10 counties, we only have 3 major hospitals, and 2 of those major
Wow.
hospitals are in one town. And so for 10 counties, you don't have a lot, but of those 10 counties, only 1 county has maternity care.
Wow, we'll talk about that too. You're gonna answer all my
Yeah.
questions.
Yes, ma'am. So I've been fighting for women's health care for a very long time. Then for the last 5 years, I've been working for a nonprofit called 0 to 3. And what they do is they are stationed in DC and they take families, one family from every state every year to the Capitol, and they advocate on like Medicaid for all, paid family medical leave, the things that help families, scientifically help families. And so I've got to do that for the last 5 years of being a federal advocate and going back and forth and talking to Congress, representatives, all the fun stuff. But then I got to go one step further and I got to start creating that community and teaching people how to be advocates and how important being an advocate actually is, and how you can just be an advocate by just talking to the person at the park. That mom's kind of struggling and you kind of see her and you don't want to overstep and you're kind of like, she needs someone to talk to. My goal in the last 5 years has been to just reach out and say, hey, mama, I see you're struggling. If you need anything, let me know. If you need an extra water bottle, I've got one in the car. And just talking to people like that is advocacy in and of itself. It doesn't always have to be political. It doesn't always have to be divisive, but just creating that community of being comfortable talking to each other is kind of what I've been building for the last 5 years. And now here I am running for Texas House of Representatives, District 72.
Awesome. I want to tell you guys, I did look at her website, and she basically has a resume on her website with all of this information. And I was like, this is the first time I've seen a candidate with a resume. She is like, I am running. I want you guys to know I have experience in what I have done to really advocate for the people. And I love that. I truly do. That was easy to see, like, okay, these are the things that she's about, including what she's already done and then what she is running for right now. So I thought that was just awesome. I want to put that out there.
Thank you.
All right. So we're going to just open with an icebreaker and then we'll get into the questions. So my icebreaker for you is, if your campaign could have a theme song, what would it be?
Ooh, so my daughter and I have been listening to a new song that popped up on Spotify called Survivor Mode. Don't ask me who it's by because I have no idea. We've been listening to it for just 2 days, but it talks about just living in survival mode and being okay with how you are when you're in survival mode and being proud of the person that you are when you're still doing things when you're in that survival mode. Because like I mentioned earlier, I'm running against a 20-year incumbent. The Democratic parties here in our 10 counties actually campaigned for him the last time because there's never been a Democrat run against him. And so I'm having to really just restructure our entire area to show them that he may be comfortable, but he's been in office since I was in 5th grade. And that's a really long time for the same ideals, and nothing's really changed. We're still next to last in education. We're still 51st in healthcare access. We're still 50th in education. When you look at our stats in the last 20 years, nothing has changed for the state of Texas, but it also hasn't changed for our district.
Right. Okay. I feel like you're going to have some awesome answers to my questions just based off this first 10-minute interaction. So,
awesome.
Yes, we're going to start with I feel like maybe a good topic, education.
Okay.
So I do want to point out that we will go through select topical questions, and in between the topics, we'll do 2 rapid fires, one that's more political in nature and then one that's a little bit more fun.
Awesome. I'm down for it.
All right. So let's get started. I want to let everybody know that if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat or feel free to request up. So first, many schools in District 72 are small and rural. How would you advocate for a fair state funding so these schools can attract teachers, keep class sizes minimal, and offer strong education programs?
That's right up my alley, girlfriend. So last night, I forgot to mention this when I was introducing myself. I am part of the parent involvement committee of my kiddo's school, only because no one else will show up. And so it's a lone committee of just me, myself, and I, but that's
Wow.
okay. We had a meeting last night with the school district. So because like I said, we're a Title I school. The school gets money from the state and the federal government for Title 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, which all have different meanings for our low income population. And the state and the federal government both make schools that receive these fundings do what they call a campus improvement plan, but also a district improvement plan. So we had our district improvement plan meeting last night where we talked about the title funds that were coming in and kind of what's expected of the school, but also just what the state and federal government are wanting us to change, which is just, they ask us questions of like, what's the culture? How many students got disciplinary actions? You know, how many of those got suspended? What are we doing to change that culture? So we're having to really look at the data and kind of change those kinds of things, which brought in the question of, and this is kind of off topic, but not really, because we're rural schools and most of us have that Title I funding. The president just announced on January 26th that he is cutting Title I funding. It's going to reduce by 30%. So my biggest question going into this that I didn't know if any of our teachers knew or our administration, is that going to affect us this coming year? Thankfully, the lady that was giving our presentation, Dr. Stacy, she had already had that exact same concern, but I was the only other person in that room that had that concern. So she got to go with me just a little bit because she didn't have all the information, but we're assuming as of right now, because the budgets have already been set for this next coming school year, that we're going to be okay with Title I funding and that our schools won't be drastically hit. But the problem that we are having is that Texas just passed school vouchers. And since you're not from Texas, I don't know if you know how bad this program actually is.
I've heard about it.
Yeah.
I'm in a blue state, but
Good for you, Mama. Good for you. I'm so happy. So school vouchers in Texas, what they just passed is $10,800 for every general education student. This does not mean that a student has to unenroll from a public school and then go to a private school. It means that if you are not enrolled in a public school, you can apply for these vouchers. So then what it does is it takes that $10,800 from the big pot that the state gives for these schools, and then everyone else just has to kind of deal with whatever's left over. What the state did is our state has $39 billion with a B in our general fund that they do not spend ever. Yet we're 47th in education. If you take out our graduation rates and don't even worry about those, we're 50th in education.
Wow.
But we have $39 billion in our general fund, right? Like we're paying our teachers $40,000 starting off the bat. And if you work for the school district for 20 years, you're expected to make about $70,000. That's it.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's insane. So what we're doing, going back to that is for special education students, they get $30,000 if your student is classified as special education. If we start our teachers out at $40,000 and only one special education student leaves our public schools, you've taken out an entire teacher.
Wow.
So that's kind of where I'm going to be. I have a lot of plans, and one of them is legalizing marijuana. And if we legalize that and use that tax base, we don't have to touch our general fund of $39 billion. We can use that to fund our public schools. We can also look at getting rid of the vouchers and making sure that we're not using the vouchers. Something that I learned last night with Title I training is that schools that are Title I, so Big Spring, which is the second biggest town, which is where I'm from, is a Title I, and then San Angelo, which is the biggest town in our district, is also a Title I school. So your two biggest schools receive Title I funding. That's absolutely insane that our entire district with our two biggest schools and most population are Title I. We're cutting that Title I funding, but also Title I funding now with the new changes under President Trump is that we have to share our Title I funds with private schools. So if a Title I student goes to a private school, the private school can request funds from our public school, and the public school has to comply.
Interesting.
So now we're losing more money. So I am all for like fixing these systems. And if that means demolishing everything and burning it to the ground, that's what we're going to have to do. Because when Ann Richards was in office, when I was born, so 30 years ago, we were 7th in education. Wow. We went from 7th to 47th in 30 years. So there's no reason for that. Absolutely no reason. So we have a big change. There's definitely avenues that we can use, like using our general fund, getting rid of vouchers. I mean, actually just funding our public schools. Another big one is the Robin Hood Act. It takes money from richer schools, which have oil-based money, is practically what it is, that oil revenue from that tax revenue, and it gives it to what we call poor schools. But the problem is that the distribution of those funds kind of varies on what school's the favorite. What, like, do we have a very small rural school that doesn't have a lot of money? Do they have state championships, specifically in football? But do they have these championships? Can the state brag on those schools? They're going to give them a little bit more funding. So there's a lot that we can do, and hopefully that answered your question on how we can better fund these schools in these rural areas.
Yes, thank you. So let's talk about STAR testing. STAR tests play a major role in evaluating students, teachers, and schools. Do you believe it's an accurate measurement of students' learning, and what changes would you support to reduce over-testing while ensuring accountability in Texas public schools?
So that's a great one. Thank you for that one. I love these education questions. I was the last class. So I graduated 10 years ago. So I'm below 30, fixing to turn 30. I was the last class to take what we call tax test, which is the older version of STAR test. And at that time, I was a senior and I was taking AP chemistry. And I made a 3 on the AP chemistry test, which means that I could have gotten the college credit for that. But at that same time, I took the practice STAR test to see what they were going to test the chemistry kids with. They wanted to see what all of us AP kids would test like. I absolutely bombed that one. And I felt really confident. And so I, as a former teacher, as a mom, and as one of those just perfectionists of always wanting to go above and beyond and failing that one, that really took a blow to my ego. That's, it was a big one. It taught me that we don't judge a fish's abilities to climb a tree when they can't, right? Like let's not judge that fish. And that's kind of what the STAR test does. So when I was teaching at the fifth grade level, I was teaching reading for about 2 semesters, a full school year. And we had a training that was about the poems and the poetry that's in those reading things, those reading tests. And it asked about what the author's interpretation of something was. Well, in our training, the author actually came out and said, that was not my interpretation. Absolutely. Like, none of those answers are my interpretation. And so we're testing these kids and we're trying to trick them, and it has no bearing on what their actual like grade readiness is. Now, what our schools currently do is they use an NWEA. It's a nationally recognized, they call them tests, but it's like 20 questions, and it's just data that they get every 3 weeks. That you do it in class. It's like a classwork. It's not very many questions. And it shows the school, the district, and the nation of where our kids are from every 3 weeks to see if they're actually ready and they're actually comprehending grade level instead of just trying to trick them. And the great thing about this is we're not spending almost $1 billion on the STAR test every single year.
Oh.
So Pearson, and I don't know if you know what Pearson is, but they do a lot of college textbooks. Pearson made a agreement with the state of Texas back in 2014 when they started the actual STAR testing. And they get almost $2 billion for creating the STAR test, for writing it, for grading it, for administering it, and for trying to train teachers on how to give out this test. $2 billion. If we got rid of STAR test, there's $2 billion that we could add back to our schools. Yes, ma'am.
That's
yes,
a lot
ma'am. It is. Yes, ma'am.
So I want to just do like a quick follow up on that question.
Yes, ma'am.
What do you, because you said that they train the teachers for the kids to take the test.
Yes, ma'am.
So in what ways do you think maybe that affects the education? Do you feel like teachers are training the kids to take the test and not actually teaching a curriculum?
Yeah. So we've always had TEKS where you have like the teacher workbook and you kind of teach from that. But the good thing before the STAR test actually came out is that you could skip through the TEKS and kind of teach it in the way that you thought your kids would understand it better. So if it's chronologically, you could do it chronologically. If it's by themes, you could do it by themes. But unfortunately now with the STAR test, you have to teach specifically to those TEKS because it's giving you the questions and the answers that you're going to see on that test. And like I said earlier, they're asking you trick questions, and most of them are trick questions. Can you read between the lines? Can you immediately take out 2 of the answers and then just kind of try and common sense it into the last 2 remaining questions? if we're teaching our kids to just how to play the system, we're not teaching them our fundamental skills that they need for life. So it's definitely one of those things that I think we failed everyone from 2014 on in our education system in Texas because we are teaching to that test and we're not allowing teachers to have that freedom of my students aren't understanding chronological order of the events. Let's group things by themes. Let's teach all about just money rather than here's a penny, here's a dime. Okay, now we have to go over to here's a dollar, here's a $5 because those are the things that they say in the teaks. I don't know, terrible example, but it's kind of one of those things that you got to skip around for.
Absolutely. All right. So one more with education. How would you work to expand access to career and technical education, community colleges, and workforce training so students can succeed without leaving the district?
Oh, that's a good one. So our Title I school, so Big Spring has two smaller towns, Fortin and Kahoma, right outside. They're like 5 minutes away. And when I was growing up, and my husband, we were 2 years apart. When we were growing up, we both had the college classes, but they were only offered 2 college classes their senior year, while I was 1 class away from graduating high school with my associates. My little brother almost got to do the same thing where he was 1 to 2 classes away from graduating Big Spring High School with his associates because we were offered more classes. And going through that, I have always been a big supporter in having those CTE classes at the high schools and having those funding because every CTE class brings more funding to the high school. And if you can just get those teachers in there to actually that knows about it, but willing to do the dirty work of a construction class, of an electrical class, and those kinds of things, and working with your local community college, if you have a local community college, but your bigger colleges also work with the small schools, even if you're nowhere near, because like I said, we're rural Texas. We don't always got colleges around, but having those classes to where your teachers are certified to be able to give you those college classes always helps. With the marijuana legalization and trying to
one more TikTok friendly word. So say like devil's lettuce or green stuff.
Okay, so the lettuce. So legalizing the lettuce and having that income, we could also help fund our community colleges. So your community colleges on your tax bill, your property tax bill, you'll see if you have a college near you, you'll have a college tax base. That's so we can still provide more CTE classes and those trainings to the community at lower cost rather than having to go to like Texas Tech, UT Austin, A&M, which a lot of people can't afford. And here in Texas, people like living here because we don't have an income tax, but then they always complain that your property taxes are too high, which they are. I'm not going to lie, but they serve that good purpose because you're paying for your local schools, you're paying for your local community colleges to keep those accessible for everyday people. And if we want to lower that burden on the average person on their property taxes, we can use the lettuce and their tax revenue to help keep those available for everybody at those very low costs. And then just keeping those classes coming into the high school area and allowing students to kind of feel for what they like. If they like building, if they like floral, if they like working on computers, those are going to be the ways that we can help our CTE programs.
Okay. Thank you. I have a question. You keep mentioning legalizing the green stuff.
Yes, ma'am.
So what is your plan for that? That's not one of my questions, but I'm kind of intrigued. You keep talking about it. So I want to know what is your plan for that? And I know you're saying a lot of it for funding schools. Do you have any other ideas of how it can fund other things for your district or the state of Texas?
Yeah. So I am all about not so much copying other people, but looking at other states that have already done this. So like vouchers for one thing, the vouchers in Arizona and Arkansas that are, states near me are absolutely, failing. And they're constantly in the news of the state trying to figure out how to turn those programs around. So instead of trying to pass vouchers ourselves, which we know is a program that doesn't work, let's look at states that have passed the lettuce and see how they have used, like what specific laws in those laws have worked well and what they've had to revise. Then come to Texas and say, all right, so these are the states that have done this. These have worked. These things really haven't. We don't really have to worry about that. But I don't want just the tax base and to say, oh, yep, everyone gets it. We're just getting your tax money. Instead, I want to make sure that we have the proper warning labels on everything. We have things packaged properly because I have had family that have had bad strains. things that were laced. And I think that we could avoid those things if we actually have it regulated. And so though I am about local government control and I don't like big government saying, here's what you have to do every step of the way, regulations save lives. Seatbelts, for example, right? So that's kind of where I want to just look at other states to kind of see what they've done to make sure that we have proper testing, we have proper labeling, we have proper packaging to make sure that we're keeping the people safe who do use the lettuce. But then we're also using that tax revenue to expand pre-K. So pre-K 3 and 4, making sure that we have students that are ready, they know how to interact with their peers. I don't want 3 and 4-year-olds going in the classroom and sitting down and doing paperwork. I want them to have structured play. I want our school system to go back to the science and say, hey, 3, 4, 5-year-olds in kindergarten don't need to be testing. They don't need to be learning in the traditional way. We need to sit there and let them play and learn through that play. But we have a lot of students, like I said, we're a Title I school. We're a Title I town where most of our population is below the poverty line. And so we have kids walking into kindergarten that don't even really know their full name. Not even just how to spell it, but they don't even know their full name. And so expanding pre-K 3 and 4 is something else that we could definitely use that tax revenue for. Childcare. So like I said earlier, how I was a teacher and I had to stay home because I didn't make enough. As a long-term substitute teacher and non-certified teacher back in 2015, I made $669.21 a month.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't even make $1,000 a month being an uncertified teacher. And I was the one that had to grade things. I had to lesson plan. I had to do everything because I was in that long-term role. And so having that childcare, like New Mexico passed in 2024, to where they've been able to see a boost in their economy because people have been able to go to work because they do have that childcare, is something that we could use that tax revenue for as well.
Thank you. It looks like we have someone in the queue that wants to come up. Oh, well, somebody already approved it. Okay. Nikki, welcome to the panel. Do you have a question for the candidate?
Yes, I do. I got in a little late, but you said that you are an educator, correct?
I was, yes, before I had
Okay.
kiddos and had to stay home.
Okay, perfect. So since we've had many studies that show that teaching to the test does not produce much smarter students, it doesn't help them for real life situations, would you be open to, or is there a possibility in your platform that you would work to pass a bill to get rid of teaching to the test, because we know that it is overwhelmingly failing the majority of American students?
Oh, absolutely. So I don't even want to just pass that legislation to not teach the test. I don't want there to be a test at all. The NWA is I don't want to call it a test because it's not quite a test. It's 20 questions that they get every 3 weeks that they have kind of pushed into their everyday curriculum to where there's no pressure to it, to where these kids aren't, hey, you have to sleep well, you have to get a good sleep, we're going to be up early in the morning. There's no pressure to these tests where the NWA does. And all it does is it tells our school and our administrators, hey, this kid's kind of lacking in these spelling words. They might need a little extra help in the spelling platform. And that one is giving us just raw data instead of trying to trick our kids in these actual tests that you're talking about, and where we're trying to say, oh, yep, they could read between the lines, they've got critical thinking skills, but it has nothing to do with their actual grade level. So absolutely, let's get rid of STAR tests. Let's move to that NWA, which the entire nation uses, not just Texas. I don't have to worry too much about Texas making bank on it, or companies coming to Texas to make bank on it like Pearson. And hopefully we'll actually get our students back on that scientific basis level of making sure that we're following that science.
Okay, thank you. I just wonder, because I feel like we're talking about education, but nobody's really talking about reforming the actual system of how we deliver education to students. And now that I think you've been one of our first candidates to have mentioned that teaching to the test is not working, but nobody has mentioned, how do we get away from it? Like, how do we break that cycle and get back to, and I'm gonna say that, to get back to, I'm gonna say really pre-2000s. And I feel like that's when yes, I think that's when the decline of American students started.
So unfortunately, a lot of candidates, I don't think that they're actually in the school system like I am. So I was the student, and then I became a teacher, and then right after a teacher, I became the parent. And now I'm one of those involved parents where I'm asking them, hey, what are we doing? What do you need help with? And they're like, oh, we're taking a test. What kind of test are you taking now? Like, didn't we just take a test? And so that's where I learned about the NWEA and how that's kind of built into our curriculum without having that pressure like STAR testing does. And I don't think a lot of other candidates are that involved, or they don't have kids, or they don't quite know there is a solution besides that standardized testing.
Thank you, and good luck on your race.
And thank you for
I'm
the
gonna follow
question.
you so I can continue to watch.
Thank you.
Thank you. It looks like we have someone else also in the queue wanting to ask a question. All right, Ayana, welcome up. Do you have your question?
Yes, I do. Hello, blessings. Hi, Shiloh. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. So, Shiloh.
Yes, ma'am.
The person who currently holds this seat, Drew Darby, is the energy guy, right? He was an energy attorney, energy board, energy this, energy that.
Yes,
But
ma'am. He is an attorney.
The electrical grid in Texas is no better off today than it was many years ago. He hasn't improved it, is what I'm trying to say. He's done nothing for improving this electrical grid. That I'm in Ohio and I know about Texas's electrical grid, right?
That's
And
crazy.
that's crazy. That's crazy. And it's even crazier that the person who is in the best position to do something about it was just like, eh. So what is your plan to upgrade? I don't know if it needs to be remodeled. Does it need a new battery? Does it need to be put in rice or something? What is your plan for the electrical grid?
If my husband's watching this, please just scroll on. I'm going to give you a second. So my husband works for the largest electric delivery system. He is a substation and transmission builder. So I've given him enough time to leave. Okay, so the grid itself isn't what was wrong. The infrastructure, there are aging parts to it, but under the President Biden administration, President Biden gave the state of Texas almost a blank check and said, fix what you need to fix. But the problem is within the last year alone, there were 5 different times that ERCOT, which is who oversees our electricity and our generation and kind of everything, they almost had rolling blackouts 5 times within the last year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it wasn't because of the actual, the poles and the substations and transmissions. It was because we didn't have enough generation of power. So either the wind turbines were down, the solar was down, the nuclear was down, whatever. I mean, we have it all here in Texas. We are the #1 producer in solar and wind energy, which is absolutely crazy that we don't have enough generation. But that goes into data centers, crypto mining, oil field. And unfortunately, that's something that I hope Ms. Blessings will ask me about so I can kind of go on that rant about data centers. But we don't have enough generation of power, which is absolutely insane considering, we are the top producers in oil, solar, and wind. It's
yeah, and Drew Darby's the energy guy. Like I was just reading about it. He's the energy guy.
Yes, ma'am. So we actually, the state of Texas, its grid is on its own grid. So we are not connected to the rest of the United States. We actually ship out a lot of our wind energy to, I hope my husband's not watching. I think it's Missouri. It might not be Missouri, but I think it's Missouri. But we ship out a lot of our electricity instead of keeping that electricity so that we can use on our own. So the grid itself is being fixed right now. Not that Representative Darby did anything for it. Encore itself will spend in the next 5 years, $40 billion with a B dollars to upgrade our grid with what they're calling 567 kV lines. And those are going to be like the highest energy level lines that we have here in Texas. And that is because we have over, I think it's 400 megawatts being asked out of our grid because of AI data centers coming in and the crypto mining centers coming in. Now, there's a project that if you really want to get in the weeds, there's a project called Project Matador. Okay, something that you need to write down and look into later on because it's a little scary for the entire U.S., not just Texas. But Project Matador is a 5 mile by 5 mile AI data center that is trying to open up in Amarillo. Okay. So you go 5 miles one way, you can turn literally at the edge of their property and go 5 miles down the road that way, and you're still going to see that same data center. They're also building 4 nuclear reactors to power that data center. Okay.
Oh my
The
God.
problem with that is that the 4 nuclear reactors won't even produce enough electricity for that. They're still going to have to pull electricity from the grid. Okay.
Wow.
In one single year, Project Matador is expected to use more electricity than 38 different states in the United States of America.
Holy crap.
That's
That's
insane.
crazy.
Yes, ma'am.
So what
Go ahead.
what are you supposed to do? So that means that there might be the rolling blackouts then, right?
So, yes, ma'am. Yeah. So we have an AI data center epidemic right now going on because the state of Texas, crazy that y'all probably don't even know this, the state of Texas legislation only meets once every 2 years. The Texas
Your videos. Wow.
Texas
I'll about that.
legislation meets for 140 days out of every 2 years unless a special election is called. So
Oh my
right
gosh.
now, Texas legislation is not meeting. Everyone, the entire Texas legislation is up for re-election. So everyone from our governor all the way down to the House District 72, which is my seat, is up for re-election right now, and nobody's working. Nobody at all. So what that means is data centers are coming into Abilene, which is an hour and a half from me, Lubbock, which is 2 hours away from me in the other direction, St. Angelo, which is in my district, an hour and a half this direction from me. And then we've got that 5 mile by 5 mile one trying to happen in Amarillo, right? If they break ground and they start the construction of their data center before Texas legislation meets in 2027, because we won't get sworn in until January of 2027.
2020. Good Lord.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Okay. Yeah.
we'll get sworn in 2027 in January, and we have to have all of our bills passed by May 24th of 2027. Okay. If the data centers break ground and start building before then, they are grandfathered into whatever kind of restrictions and regulations the Texas House and Senate pass for these data centers, which means that in Robert Lee, a city that's in my county, they are in a stage 3 water conservation right now. I mean, they can't water their own grass.
Oh,
they
come
can't
on.
wash their cars.
Come on.
And we are trying to open a data center that's going to use every bit of that water that we already don't have.
Oh my
On
God.
top of the electricity that we also already don't have.
Why is this? Because and they don't bring a lot of jobs. Like the building jobs are temporary, right? The
Yes,
construction
ma'am.
jobs are temporary, and
So
then
5 by 5 Project Matador, they're only expected to have 20 employees at a time, like year round. Yes, ma'am. So after it's done and built, they'll only employ 20 people.
20 people.
Yes, ma'am.
But they're going to take
also-
all your water and all your electricity.
Yes, ma'am. They also get tax abatements by the state. So they get, I think it was like a 70% tax reduction where they don't have to pay sales taxes on the electricity and water that they use.
What?
Because Texas doesn't regulate that right now. And since they are a big business and they're giving tax revenue in their property taxes, which they also get breaks on, they get to get that abatement on their water and electricity bills as well.
Oh, this is madness. This is madness.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
oh my God.
I don't like to bash my opponent because I was a longtime supporter of my opponent, mostly because there was no one ever going against him. And he was always for the teachers until he voted for school vouchers and then threw teachers under the bus. He has taken $50,000 from data centers in the last 3 months.
Wow.
He's also like 80 years old or something, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Girl, bye.
You have
No.
a good day and thank you for coming.
I was
Say bye to you.
I wasn't saying
I know. I'm just trying to make everyone laugh.
Oh
'cause
my
that's what I
God,
do.
this is ridiculous. Oh no, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I really am. I hope you're going to do a better job, honestly,
I hope
because
so, too.
this is crazy.
The problem is that one, I don't have 1,000 followers, so I can't post our website onto our
Well, I'm going to follow you.
TikTok. So if anyone here wants to follow to help me get to 1,000, I'd really appreciate that, just so you can easily find my website. But also, we are in a deep red district, and as I was looking at early polling numbers last night, I'm at a 42-point loss. Now, that's not irreversible. We can't not win that. But Tarrant County just won a 30-something point difference where they flipped that seat that's never been blue to a blue seat. So it is doable, but my opponent has $1 million, and I'm working on a TikTok budget, what my 8-year-old calls it. So
do the people know they're not going to have water?
Yes, ma'am. So that's kind of where we're hoping that that's going to help us flip this seat from red to blue. But I'm working against his last votes, his last election 2 years ago. He got 13,000 votes. Right now, Democrats only have 1,000 votes in early voting right now. So I've got a very big margin to kind of make up for. However, that was 2 years ago when we didn't have the AI data center crisis and water crisis that we do now. So I'm hoping that's going to be a lot easier. But I'm not going to lie, it's going to be a hard race to flip. And thankfully, Miss Blessings is helping me get this word out.
Yes,
it might make it a little easier.
Yes, when the YouTube video of this comes out, I want you to clip this conversation and I want you to post this to your social medias so people will know the damage that's going to be done to their neighborhoods from these AI centers, and the resources that are already limited are going to be even more limited. Like, I feel like you should highlight that, because if people don't care about anything else, they care about being able to wash their hair, you know, give their kids a bath or whatever. I don't know. Personally, for me, I need to water my plants. If I can water my plants, then there's trouble. There's trouble.
So we also have District 72 is a high agriculture area besides being an oil field area. So our agriculture actually just kind of like roams just around all the oil field little things and pump jacks out there and the batteries out there. And the farmers are worried now. And when the farmer is worried and the farmer goes to an ER or they come to a city council meeting, you know things are getting real. And so when I need them to be talking about this,
yes, I need them to be serious, not just worried, but serious about doing something about this, about stopping it. Not just, oh, well, don't take any reassurances from the Republicans. No. Actually, kick them out of office because they're about to take all of your water that you need to water your crops, and put somebody in office who's going to put a stop to this. I don't know how you're going to do it. Okay. I don't know how you're going to put a stop to it, but I know if you get into office, you're going to do something.
I'm loud. I'm real loud, and I'm a thorn
that
in everyone's side.
Helps.
So we'll figure it out, Mama. We'll figure it out.
All right. So I got to go. You got some questions in the chat. Blessings.
I know you've asked all my infrastructure questions.
Oh,
so thank you so much.
I'm sorry. You're welcome. All right. Take care.
Okay, let's see. So we did, there were quite a few questions popping up in the chat as you guys were talking. So let's see. I'm trying to. One question: do you support lowering the delivery costs consumers on electric bills?
Ooh, so I do, but I don't know how to do that because the delivery cost typically. So for my area, like Encore, like I said earlier, Encore is not all over the entire state, but it is the largest one. They set their own prices. So to combat that, we would have to go through ERCOT, and then ERCOT would have to make those changes. Unfortunately, sitting on ERCOT is a bunch of millionaires, almost billionaires. And of the 7 people, I think only 2 live in the state of Texas, and the other ones don't. And so they have no skin in the game. So trying to get them to pass that without getting a progressive governor is going to be near impossible. But I do think that there needs to be that change. I just think that's going to be a really, really hard change. Instead, what I would look at doing, especially with the AI data center stuff coming on and that raising people's electric prices around us. Just for reference, my last electric bill, because Texas froze over for a couple of days, was $548. That's insane, right? Like, people can't pay that. So what I would like to do is I would like to see a cap on residential and small businesses of what those prices would look like. So right now we're paying about 15 cents per kilowatt hour. When I bought this house that we live in 2018, we were only paying like 9 cents a kilowatt hour. So I think if we could cap those residential and small businesses don't pay above a certain kilowatt hour rather than that delivery charge, I think we would get a lot better of a coalition of both Democrats and Republicans actually trying to pass that rather than capping delivery fees, because that's going to go through the ERCOT board and none of them have skin in the game. So they're not going to do anything.
Okay. Another question: do you have a counter narrative strategy for the AI boom storyline?
So what I would like to do is allow the businesses to come, but regulate them. Just kind of like I was talking about regulating the lettuce. With the regulations, we can keep people safe without stifling business. However, I think there's going to be an AI bust very, very soon. I don't think that AI data centers are going to wait for 2027 when Texas legislation goes back into office, because they know that there are progressives out there like myself who are ready to regulate no matter what we have to. If that's the hill I die on, that's the hill I die on. I mean, that's kind of where we're at. And so what I'm hoping to do is I'm hoping to regulate them by making them use non-potable water, gray water, fracking water. I don't know if anyone in this chat knows, but the Texas legislation, when they met last year, what they did is they allowed fracking water to be used on our crops. That's how little water we do have. And of course, oil is going to always win because they have money. And now data centers are always going to win because they have money. So instead of trying to ban them from the state, if we can make them use something like fracking water or non-potable water, water that we can't use anyways in our houses, I think that we would have a better chance of fighting back rather than just trying to say we're not open for business. I would love to say we're not open for business, but I don't think that the other side of the aisle would be willing to work with that. And instead of compromising and just saying, okay, y'all win, like we're fine, we'll figure it out later, let's regulate the hell out of them.
Okay. All right. I hope that answers the questions in the chat. We're going to do a rapid fire, political rapid fire. To break this up a little bit, then we'll go back into the questions.
Awesome.
Okay. All right. So, one word to describe your leadership style.
Cooperative.
Okay. Biggest issue facing your community right now.
Water.
First bill or policy you'll prioritize in office.
Passing Medicaid expansion.
Okay. Immigration, pathway to citizenship or stricter enforcement.
Pathway to citizenship by, sorry, you said rapid fire. My bad. Keep going.
Minimum wage, raise or keep the same.
Raise, absolutely. And using tip workers as a raise too, because we never use tip workers as a raise.
Okay. So let's go in, since we're already talking about wages, let's go into economic security and fair wages.
Okay.
From your perspective, what does real economic security look like for working families in District 72, and where do you think the state is currently falling short?
Awesome. So in economic security, we actually ranked 46. Okay. For retirement, we are ranked 49th, meaning that if you retire here in the state of Texas, you're not going to be able to live the entirety of your retirement. That's where we're falling short. Okay. We're at the bottom of the list in education and healthcare, retirement, and economic security. Why we all live here? Why we live here, I don't know. But that's where we're at. So what I would like to see is I'd like to see us pass the minimum wage. However, with that minimum wage, I also want to make sure that we're including salary workers. So like your teachers, your firemen, your police officers. I want to make sure that they're also making that living wage and not just kind of leaving them out because they're not an hour by hour wage. I also want to do tip workers, because tip workers here in Texas make $2.13.
Wow.
If their tips don't match what they would have made on minimum wage. Now, minimum wage in Texas is $7.25. Nobody can live on that. What I want to see is I want to see you be able to put in your 40 hours a week and be able to afford an apartment. I want you to not have to worry about settling and getting married with somebody who might be abusive, you might be trapped with. I don't want to see children being hungry and the schools trying to figure out how to make sure these kiddos are eating after school. Okay, I want to make sure that when we talk about Texas, we're talking about the equity of Texas and not the feel good that people have been saying for the last 30 years of, oh, we have the most Fortune 500 companies here. Oh, we have the biggest oil production here. Great. Then why do you have kids going hungry? Why do you have families of two adults that have two children that are still not able to afford a $50,000 house? That's because we have electricity prices of $548, right? We have water bills that are almost $200. Like it doesn't make sense in the scheme of things when nothing here is affordable. And I understand that Texas is an oil town, so we have the oil inflation more so than everywhere else. I do understand that I'm probably going to have people in California in this chat say, oh my gosh, you don't even understand it, because we have that too. But that's the thing. Our wages aren't matching that. When you have teachers making $40,000 And then I turn around, and after I pick my kid up from school and I go to the local steakhouse here, I see the teachers working.
Hmm.
When I go to the local Walmart after school, I see teachers clocking in for their shift just so they can make ends meet. That's not keeping Texas their citizens as a priority. So we need to increase those wages. We need to make sure that Medicaid, and that's probably gonna be your next question, and if it is, I'm so sorry, but we need to make sure that Medicaid access is expanded. So like I said, we are 51st in healthcare access, right? We're also 50th in coverage. So we have 1 in 10 people don't have coverage, Medicaid coverage or healthcare coverage in the state of Texas. Okay. Here locally in just my county, not even my district, we have a Medicaid caseload of 2,242 kids. We have 500 kids on SNAP.
Wow.
We only have 2,000 kids in our school district, and we have 500 of that 2,000 on SNAP. So what we need to do is we need to have Medicaid expansion. And what Medicaid expansion did is it came from the Obamacare, Affordable Care Act, whatever you want to call it. And in 2014, 2015, it became eligible for the states to expand Medicaid coverage, which means that if you make somewhere between that, you're just too much to get normal Medicaid coverage, but you're not enough to buy what's on the Medicaid market. So like you're not able to go get your own insurance because you don't make enough and your employer doesn't cover your insurance. Those are the people that we have just this huge gap of people not covered at all. What happens is the state of Texas has said over and over and over again from 2014 on is that we don't want that money because it's Democrat money. The problem is that it's not Democrat money because when you get your paycheck, you paid into Medicaid. And so when you paid into Medicaid, the federal government is giving that money back to the states and says, hey, Texas, here's your Medicaid funding that your people overpaid for. Go ahead and fund people and make sure they have healthcare coverage. But we don't do that because we consider it Democrat money because a Democrat passed the Affordable Care Act in 2013. So here we are. So that's kind of where I want to see Texas when we talk about poverty. We talk about how I want Texans to be able to live. I want you to be able to put in your 40 hours and be able to afford your bills. Absolutely. I'm not saying you have to get fancy cars or anything with your 40 hours. I just want you to be able to eat. I want these babies to be able to eat and not have to worry about the school and teachers have to worry about, is that child going to eat all weekend?
Yes. Absolutely. And I think that's something everybody should be able to come together on. Doesn't matter what political side you vote on. Hungry kids is never anything anybody wants to have. So let's see. You're answering so many of my questions. This is
I'm
great.
sorry.
No, you're fine. Well, since we did talk a little bit about healthcare, what policies do you support at the state level to expand paid family and medical leave and strengthen the economic security for families in District 72?
This is something that I got to advocate for the last 5 years at the federal level. I'm going to tell you a funny story just to kind of break that little ice of this one because it's going to get kind of serious kind of fast. I became a reverend, a pastor, if you will, right before I went to DC this last time because I wanted Ted Cruz to look at me, a woman and a pastor, and tell me that he was not going to expand Medicaid and he was going to defund children's. So early intervention is a therapy that the state pays for through Medicaid. And that those therapists come to rural areas to help children like my first child who's autistic, who is nonverbal. And that program was going to be completely cut under the big, beautiful bill. And I wanted Ted Cruz to tell me as a woman, a mom with my special needs child and a pastor, that he was doing the Lord's work by cutting Medicaid and those programs for families in his state. Okay. So it was great because he tried talking to my husband and I finally had to tell him, like, he's here to babysit the kids. That's the only reason my lovely husband was with me that day. He was there to babysit the kids and look pretty while I was there actually talking about the real stuff. And so that's where I am the real deal when it comes to paid family medical leave because my oldest child who's autistic, not only is she autistic and was nonverbal until she was 4.5, but she also had head surgery at 6 months old. So we had to drive from Big Spring to Dallas, which is a 4.5-hour drive, to get her head completely split open and have cranial vault reconstruction surgery, which means that her skull was just pre-fused together. She had no soft spots and they had to create soft spots. We were in the hospital for about a week, and the problem with that is because she was only 6 months old, my husband took all of his sick leave and his time off for having the baby, that we had no time for when she was having surgery. So then we came home, and every other week we were having to go back to Dallas to make sure that everything was growing right, that we didn't need a helmet, all these things. And I was having to do that by myself as a newly postpartum mom with a special needs baby, with all the things going on, driving 4.5 hours there, doing our 45-minute appointment, driving 4.5 hours back that day because we were new parents. We didn't have the money to stay that late. And he wasn't able to be there with all of that. Both of them, my husband and my daughter, had a very rocky relationship after that because during the surgery and in her recovery right after, he wasn't there. And paid family and medical leave would have allowed him to be there, which is a portion of his paycheck, where we didn't have to worry about, are we going to have our car repoed, or is he going to be able to be there with the baby to make sure that when she's at her most vulnerable, that she knows that dad and mom were there. Instead, she only knew mom was there, so she didn't trust dad. And so when we came home, she wanted nothing to do with dad. She just wanted mom, which that's okay for most kids. Most kids prefer one parent over the other. But when she was in that most vulnerable state with also being that special needs and knowing that dad wasn't there, it created that big rift. So after that surgery, we started having our occupational, our speech, our physical therapy, and our dietitian therapy because she had a lot going on with her head being prefused. And he wasn't there for any of those trainings. So we had the therapist coming into our home, teaching me for almost 3 hours a day, every single day, of what I needed to do and how to help her. And then when he got home after his long shift, I had to play like I was a trained therapist and teaching him how to do these things, which created a big rift between he and I. Thankfully, we're a great team and we're good now. But it was a big deal where paid family medical leave would have allowed him to take off just a couple of hours early that day to be able to do the therapy with us so that he was able to have the hands-on training by professionals that he wasn't allowed to do otherwise. So paid family medical leave, we already have the surplus in our general fund. We have it in our rainy day fund. We could pass the lettuce if we wanted to pass the lettuce. Hell, I'm down for having more of a tax on oil production, on production of solar. So every kilowatt that solar and wind energy brings, I'm down for taxing AI data centers and crypto and Bitcoin mining centers of how many megawatts or kilowatts they use and using that towards paid family and medical leave. I'm even down. So the research shows that if we just do one extra penny of tax on your employer tax, right? So your employment tax. So like your Medicaid tax and your Social Security tax, that one extra penny, because you're not going to be taking paid family medical leave all the time, that one extra penny will start accumulating so that when you do need it, when you do have an ailing parent, your spouse is ailing, you're ailing, your child is ailing, or you just need therapy, because doctor's appointments here in rural Texas is an entire day off work. It's not just take it through my lunch break. We don't have doctors here. We don't have maternity care. We don't have therapists. We don't have specialized care. So we're having to take an entire day or two if you don't want to, have a 10-hour day on the road. You have to take a day or two just to see that one doctor for that 45 minutes. So paid family medical leave is something that I'm not going to push until West Texans tell me they want to push it, because I feel like that's more of my agenda of being at that federal level and advocating at that federal level for this for the last 5 years. But I will keep talking about it. I will keep telling people like, hey, there is this program. This is what we could do. Like, would you like me to press this? So when I do talk to people, I say, here's my priorities and here's West Texas priorities that I'm definitely going to push. But I still want to talk to you about mine. I'm not going to make mine the main priority, because that's not what we're here to do, right? We're here to be your voices. And so I'm going to keep talking about paid family medical leave. And I'm so thankful that you brought that up. That gives me a chance to talk about
it. We're going to get the candidate back in here so we can do these last 30 minutes of this town hall. We had some technical difficulties, but we are back. We are back. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for coming back. Well, thank you for coming back. Let's tap the screen. Let's get back on the FYP so we can finish out our last little 30 minutes of this great town hall. We're having great conversation. I appreciate you guys for coming back. I appreciate the candidate for coming back. All right, I believe we are back. Are you?
It's okay. TikTok just didn't like how good a conversation we were having.
I know. Thank you guys for joining us back here. We are back. We're going to continue. I believe we were talking about healthcare.
Yes, ma'am.
That's
Medicaid expansion. Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay. There was a question in the chat, and it was kind of on the line of what I was going to ask anyways, because you talked a lot about there aren't a lot of doctors and rural hospitals in your area, maternity care in your area. So what actions would you take at the state level to protect the rural hospitals and then expand access to primary and mental health?
Ooh, okay. So rural hospitals. Hang on, let me sit down and actually be professional. Sorry, making dinner for the babies. I'm a mom, y'all. I said that earlier. I am a mom first. So
I understand.
Rural hospitals, 80% of their budgets come from Medicaid inpatient visits. So when we don't expand Medicaid, and we have a bunch of people in this gap. So 1 in 10 people aren't covered for Medicaid or healthcare coverage in the state of Texas. But in my district, it's more like 1 in 5 people don't have healthcare coverage, okay? Even if you don't have healthcare coverage, you're still getting sick. Not only are you still getting sick, but you're still having to go to doctors, you're still having to go to work, you're still having to do all of the things that you do when you're not sick. So what we want to do is we want to expand Medicaid to make sure that you don't fall between the gap of your employer being able to help you pay for it, you have that employer coverage, or Medicaid helps you cover it, right? You already pay into the Medicaid program. Texas already pays in the Medicaid program with your everyday check. So you're already paying for that program that we're not using. And that's kind of where that would help our rural hospitals. So like I said earlier, in my 10 counties, we only have 3 major hospitals. I did not get to say, because I was hoping we'd talk about healthcare later down the road. So I want to leave something new to talk about. In my town, in my county, which is one of the 3 major hospitals, it has gone bankrupt twice in the last 5 years. It has sold 3 times in the last 5 years. And we are in the middle of another selling because it's not making money. But it's not making money because 1 in 5 people don't have healthcare coverage. So the hospital's not getting paid by Medicaid to stay open. We actually call it, and I love our hospital because I love the people that work there now that everything's kind of changing again, but we call it Death Mountain. It's actually called Scenic Mountain Medical Center, but we call it Death Mountain because in the past, when you go there to die. You go there because there's not enough doctors.
Unalive. Sorry,
unalive. Yeah, you go there to unalive. My bad. You go there to be unalive. Not because of anything you did, but because they don't have the resources. They don't have swabs. They don't have ventilators. They don't have what they need, while also not having those doctors. We don't have enough doctors here. We don't have maternity care here anymore. What do you do in a hospital when you don't have enough swabs, or you don't have enough syringes, or you don't have enough IV bags? You don't do anything. You defer those patients to somewhere else. So that's kind of where expanding Medicaid by itself will fix a lot of that problem. But on the access of getting more mental health counselors here, getting more therapists here, because we don't have that here, that's where the state can actually do programs where you are giving those incentives to come to rural areas. So the state would pay doctors to stay here, kind of like my husband gets a stipend every year, a bonus every year for staying in West Texas, because no one wants to be here. There's nothing here. There's no healthcare here. There's no entertainment here. So he gets a little bit extra every year. We can do the exact same thing for doctors. We could also invest in mobile clinics. So my sister's an ER nurse. She's been a nurse for over 15 years now. I think she's almost at 20. And when COVID hit, she started trying to do the travel nurses. Well, that gave me and my husband a good idea because we're a bunch of nerds. And when we're on big trips, we like to talk about problems that we're facing in Texas and in the world and how to fix those problems. And then kind of joss about, like, why aren't other people thinking about this? Like, why aren't we fixing these big problems? So one problem that we thought of was mobile healthcare clinics and the state actually paying doctors and nurses to come to rural areas and underserved areas once, twice, 3 times a month to just sit there for a day and have those clinics open to where we can get people seen by actual providers rather than just making rural Texas do without, because that's exactly what we've been doing. We've been telling, so fun story. When I started this campaign, I started at Christmas because the deadline was December 8th. And that next week, that following week, a lot of small towns and small counties that are in my district had Christmas parades. I was like, oh, what the best way to actually get our name out there is to go to these Christmas parades and put our car or truck in and, have our signs and do all the things to let people know that we're here, right? Well, I was on our way back home. It was an almost 2-hour drive because it's at the very edge of our district, which is 2 hours between where I am and where they were. And we were in a wreck, and my dad and I hit a deer, and it totaled my dad's truck. And we were in the middle of nowhere. We are in that part of the middle of nowhere where there's no cell service. Thankfully, my dad had OnStar, so it called for help for us. But the problem is that when the ambulance arrived to check on me, my kids, and my dad, they asked us, where do we want to go? Because the closest hospital is an hour either direction.
Wow.
An hour. So what happens when the farmer gets stuck under his tractor and needs immediate care, and the life flight's not going to get there in time? What do we do for those kind of people? And so that's where I want these mobile clinics to come around, and I want to invest in the rural hospitals. I want to invest in even your tiny clinics, like the one in Stanton in Martin County. Invest in those ones because their town has invested so much in that one that they are now a multi-million-dollar facility that are attracting these therapists. They're attracting these high-level doctors from New Jersey and Vermont, and they're coming down here because like, man, these people are actually investing in it. And so I'm sitting here looking like, if the town that has less than 10,000 people can have a multi-million-dollar facility, and then in 5 years add another huge portion, again, multi-million-dollar facility for just therapies, why can't the state do that? Why can't the state take this lead and make sure that we are making sure that there is healthcare coverage in the entire state? I mean, we shouldn't have to worry about an hour drive when you're in a wreck and your vehicle's totaled.
Yes. And out that, yeah, because if it's a serious emergency, and somebody can't wait an hour, to get the needed help. That's crazy.
Yes, ma'am.
Whew. Okay, so let's talk about public safety, accountability, and community trust. So how do you define public safety in District 72, and how would you balance support for law enforcement with prevention, mental health services, and community-based solutions?
Okay, cool. So I am the daughter of 2 public servants. My dad worked for the federal prison here for almost 30 years. My mom worked for the local police department for almost 25. So I am no stranger to the mental health aspects when it comes to being a public servant in those kinds of fields. Last I saw, it was 1 in 8 people unalive themselves when they're in those fields because of the lack of support, not only from family and friends and not understanding how those jobs are, but not having the actual trained professionals to give that support. So I'm a union kid. Both of my parents were on their respective unions trying to get those kinds of help to make sure that they're keeping their friends safe and alive, right? But I don't want to talk so much about the police departments because police departments are city controlled and the state can't really say what you do with each city police department. But what I can do is I can work with the sheriff's departments. And San Marcos is a really good example, and Howard County, which is actually the county that I reside in, is becoming a very, very good example, leading the way in having halfway houses for repeat offenders. And they started looking at, why are these people constantly offending? Why are they constantly in our jails? What can we do to help them? And the biggest part was mental health care access for the person that was offending. And so what they did is they brought in mental health care specialists so that when that person was in our jail, they're getting the help that they need. They're starting the process of understanding how their brain works and getting the medication to help their brains. But then instead of just throwing them back on the street where they might be homeless, unhoused, they might go back into these bad scenarios where they repeat offend again. And instead, we're putting them in halfway houses and we're giving them jobs through the county of picking up trash, helping keep county buildings clean and those kinds of things, to where we're giving them something to work with. Now, San Marcos started that when Howard County has kind of gone above and beyond with that. And I think that's where the state can kind of look at these counties who are doing good And when you don't have as many repeat offenders, your officers aren't having to go to too many de-stress calls, and we're not having to worry so much about their mental health and their safety. I also want to make sure that we have mental health trained specialists on staff at every sheriff's department, so that when there is a call and you have someone like, say, my daughter who is autistic, who does not always react to a certain situation that a normal person would, she might fight or flight, she might run from you. And it's not because, she's doing something bad or anything, but it's because her nervous system is telling her she's in danger, she needs to run. So instead of having an officer who does not have that training and that mental health, and they get 4 hours a year in training, I don't think 4 hours is enough, if we're going to be real honest, but I want a mental health specialist there on the ground, so that when we do have these kinds of situations, or we have a standoff, or we have the domestic violence call, and we have a mom who is so much in survival mode that the officers aren't able to kind of convince her that, hey, like this isn't a safe situation, you need to leave. And instead having that mental health counselor there, so that we're not putting all the strain on our officers. I think that's going to be the biggest help of how I, as a person, could help our officers, is by making sure they have the resources, just like our hospitals have the resources. But I want to go a little bit further on that one. I know we're kind of running out of time.
No, you're fine.
Okay, cool. So the state of Texas has what we call emergency service districts. And that is a district that the counties have to pass, which would be another taxing entity, another taxing board to tax property taxes, okay? A lot of our counties don't have this, and that's because we run specifically on volunteer fire departments. Like I said, we have a county that only has three major hospitals. And then you're looking at, we'll say Glasscock County. They don't actually have a paid fire department. They run on strictly volunteers. So what happens when you have your 3 guys that actually volunteer and actually show up to calls are too busy to take a call, like the one that me and my dad were on, where the volunteer fire department was the first ones on the scene. And we had to hope that they were able to take the call, and that they were willing to leave their families at 8:00 at night to respond to our call of our vehicle being totaled. And these people don't get any compensation. Some counties do give them a gas card every year, and it's like $100 gas card, but what are we doing? So I think that Texas has not taken our safety as a priority for a really long time. And for the last 4 years, I've been working with our volunteer fire department here in Howard County, to try and pass an emergency service district to allow there to be a board created so that we can get tax revenue, so that we can be funded. And that started when I ran for county commissioner in 2020. And when I ran for county commissioner in 2020, I only ran because our volunteer fire department ran out of funds 3 months before they were due to be allotted new funds. And so they had no phone. And so they are helping not only Howard County, but they're helping Glasscock County and Sterling County, which are neighbors to us, because they also only have volunteer fire department, right? And so they ran out of foam, and they still had 3 months. We were in fire season, and we were in burn bans, drought, like everything was against our volunteer fire department. And our county told them, go find some grants, go beg for money. And so for me, what I would like to do is I would like to make that into a actual statewide system, to where like a hospital district or like a school district or a college district, that's something that's already kind of done, because safety should be our number one priority. And I, as a person that lives in Texas, should not have to worry about, if I get in a wreck in the middle of nowhere, am I going to have someone actually come to my aid? Is my husband, who's 45 minutes away, going to beat the volunteer fire department because the volunteer fire department had to leave their kids, leave their houses, go to their station, then come out to us, and my husband beat them? So that's kind of where I would like to focus more on that mental health aspect, and then the actual funding aspect, and not so much about, the defund the police or fund the police or do any of the crazy things like that I know a lot of other states talk about. I want to talk about those real issues that I see our officers having, and what tools I can give them without causing, I think it'd be a bipartisan issue. I think that we would be able to say, hey, we need funded volunteer fire department. Like, we need to make them actual fire departments. We need to make sure that our officers have the resources they need by like mental health specialists. I mean, I don't think that's going to be too big of a partisan issue, that I don't think we wouldn't be able to get that done.
Absolutely. And I find it's full circle, right? You talked about how they need the Medicare and Medicaid because you don't have the hospitals, and then you need the hospitals so then you can have the mental health specialists, and then the mental health specialists help people who may reoffend and make sure they don't reoffend, which lightens the burdens on the police department. So it's really a full circle thing when you think about everything that a community needs. You affect one thing, you change so much more and just make the community better. So
Absolutely.
very interesting. So let's see. Before we leave, let's do our fun rapid fire.
Okay.
All right. So, morning person or night owl?
A night owl because my ADHD insomnia.
Okay. Sweet or salty treats?
Salty.
Okay. What's harder, organizing a protest or organizing a campaign?
A campaign. I'm still solo, and if anyone wants to be my campaign manager, even if you don't live in the state of Texas, I would greatly appreciate that.
I heard somebody give that maybe the colleges might have like some political science majors that might
Yes.
be looking for some work or some volunteer time. So that might be.
Unfortunately, our colleges are very heavily censored, and we're not really allowed to. Yeah, so I'm kind of on my own of trying to find them after class, and I haven't done that yet.
Okay. Travel back in time or into the future?
Back in time.
All right. And if you could have one superpower, what would it be?
I don't have one actually. I think they are too much of a double-edged sword. My husband and I have talked about this way too much. That way too much. We have gone way too in detail with this. That I don't think I would want a superpower. I think that it's one of those things that we think is a blessing, but would honestly be a curse.
Interesting. Okay, that's an interesting answer. I feel like people usually just choose something. So okay. If anybody in the chat has a question for Shiloh before we leave, anything about infrastructure, education, healthcare, we talked a lot about AI data centers. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or request up. So we're going to go into some closing questions and then we'll head out of here.
Sounds good.
So let's see. What is your long-term vision for District 72, and what will you, how will you make sure rural communities are not left behind in Texas policymaking?
So I actually found a new quote last night when I was just randomly scrolling, and it was that if we're not going to be allowed to be at the table, we're going to bring a folding chair. And I kind of feel like that is kind of where rural Texas has been, that we have been left out of that conversation. Representative Drew Darby, when he took office when I was in 5th grade, my dad actually took me to one of his town halls. Fun fact, he has not had a town hall since I've been graduated, just so we're clear. But I had asked him when, as a 5th grader, and it was a question my dad asked. I don't remember the specifics, but what I do remember is the representative told me, specifically my dad, that he is just one vote in a very large area going against all of the urban votes where you have, 15 people for the urban areas and you have one person for the rural areas. And so he felt like his vote never mattered. And that really carried weight with me because my dad and I talked about that on the way home of, well, then be louder. I mean, I am no stranger to being loud and people telling me that I'm annoying and I'm too much and whatever. But honestly, at this point, we need someone that's too much. We need someone who's going to be loud and be unapologetic about it, because for the last 20 years, our district has had absolutely no representation because our representative feels like his vote doesn't matter and he's not out there actively working for it, and instead just kind of sitting in the shadows. So if we're not going to have that seat at the table, I'll bring the folding chair. We'll make sure that we're heard, because that's all we're asking for. We're asking for our rural hospitals to not close. We're asking for our schools to be funded. We're asking that, making sure that we're actually testing students to grade level and not trying to trick them. We're asking to just have water so we can wash our own vehicles, so we can make sure that our dogs have enough water or our cattle have enough water. And when we can't do that, we need to start being a little louder. And I don't think that enough people are mad enough yet until they get that stage 3 water conservation that's coming out and saying, you can't water your car. you can't water your big cattle because the oil field took it and now data centers are taking it. So I think that's kind of where we're at. And what I want for us is I just want us to be heard. That's it. Even if I'm not elected, I still want District 72 to be heard because we haven't been heard in 20 years.
Absolutely. And I want to ask this. So how can you convince people to vote? Because I know how you just said that he was one vote amongst many and he felt like his vote doesn't count. And I feel like a lot of people who vote now feel like their vote doesn't count, especially probably people in your rural area. And you spent, I think in your video you said 5 cycles in the voting, yes, as working in the voting polls. So how can you convince people to get out and early vote? Because I know it has started in Texas, and let them know that their vote does count and it does matter when it comes to elections.
So early voting, last day is tomorrow, 7 to 7. So find your nearest location. Voting day, is March 3rd. Also 7 to 7. So, make sure you're in line before 7 o'clock. As long as you're in line, stay in line, make sure that your actual vote's going. But as someone who's worked the cycles for the polls for 5 cycles and has been a voter deputy registrar, meaning that I'm able to register people to vote. What I would tell you is that when you do vote in these kinds of elections, and I mean the small elections, I mean the city elections, the county elections, the special elections, the midterm elections where nobody comes out, those are the ones that your vote matters the most into, because you're not being overheard by the big states. You're not being overheard by the urban areas. You're electing the people. So I like to say that county commissioners are actually the most important person on your ballot, specifically in rural areas, because when the state doesn't meet for that year and a half of the 2 years they don't meet, your county commissioners are your highest ranking official in Texas that actually can make legislation or ordinances that affect your daily life. And so when I started talking to people about how that vote right there, your county commissioner, your mayor, your city council member, those are things that affect you every day, and how just showing up to the polls right now and electing those people, you're going to see that vote a lot sooner than you're going to see, the presidential person working for you or your senator actually working for you. But taking it into perspective of just, there are people who are local. There are seats like the Texas House and Texas Senate who come back home to you for a year and a half, and they're living amongst you for a year and a half. You're going to see them. They're living your problem. So when I say your vote matters, I don't take that lightly. It's not just a slogan of your vote matters. It actually is half of your ballot, a little over half of your ballot lives in your area. They are facing the same problems as you. And so getting out there and voting and letting them know who you actually want representing you at that local and state level is going to give you that clearest voice. But make sure that you're voting for the person who is going to be loud and not care that, I'm just one vote. It is what it is. I'm just going to take my paycheck and go home. Like, make sure that you're going for that person who might not have the same ideals as you, but is going to be loud for you.
Absolutely. I love that. No, I think it's just so important. I feel like I hear so many people talk about their vote doesn't matter. So I feel like that was just very important. Yeah. So Shiloh Salazar, I would like to thank you for coming here tonight. This has been a great town hall. I want to ask you one last question. What is just your final message as we head towards Election Day? I know Texas already started early voting. What is just your final message to the people as they head to the polls?
My final message is just do your own research. Don't take research from TikToks or YouTube or your parents or your grandparents, because Texas used to be blue. My district actually has only voted for 3 Republicans in its entire existence, and that was for the last 30 years. Of the last 30 years, only one of those candidates the incumbent now has sat there for the last 20 years. So when I say that our morals and priorities didn't change overnight, they didn't. It was just enough people didn't stop standing up. Enough people said, my vote doesn't matter, it doesn't care. And then we started listening to our parents and our grandparents, because they're always Republican or they're always Democrat. We only vote for this person because of the party. I am a progressive, and I will always stand by, I want progress. I don't want to stay stagnant, but I want you to look at the person as themselves and see what they are doing and what their ideas are. And if they are the person that's going to take your voice and actually say what you're saying, or are they going to take your voice, stifle it, and then take $50,000 from AI data centers. That's what I want you to do. I want you to kind of do your own research. Don't listen to the mumbo jumbo around you, and kind of figure out for yourself if this person is legitimate. I mean, I don't want to say that they're more qualified or they have more education, but are they authentic? Are they going to stay authentic, or are they going to sell their souls? Because one thing that I'm not going to do, I don't listen to my husband. I don't listen to my dad. I have to learn things the hard way. I'm not going to fall in that line of, you offer me enough money and I'm going to give you the school voucher vote. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to sell at our public schools, because I have to come back home to those public schools and have my kids in those public schools. So that would be my last message. That's a long one, but I think it's really important of just finding that authentic person, that legitimate person.
Absolutely. Again, Shiloh Salazar, this has been a great town hall. I want to thank you for coming. I want to thank all the people in the chat for being here, for requesting up, asking your questions, for putting all the questions in the chat. The engagement has been great. So before we leave, I want to invite you and our guests, our guests in the chat, to our next town hall, which is tonight at 9 p.m. With Latia, and she is running in Ohio for a House seat, District 57. And I also want to invite you to what we call a candidates roundtable, where we have them every other Sunday, and we have candidates on a panel altogether, about 6 candidates who come and just talk about politics currently, their campaign, and what they're running on. Our next one is March 1st, so just look out for an invitation for that. So again, I want to thank you for coming. I want to thank the audience for coming. I'm going to tell you again, we are Our Vote Counts, a nonpartisan movement uniting Americans from all walks of life to empower voters, support candidates of integrity, ensure every voice is heard. Through education, outreach, accountability, and action, we're building a stronger democracy, one informed vote at a time. Join us. Your vote is your power. Good night, guys. See you at 9.
Thank you.
Thank you.